Want to know how to turn authority into a seven-figure business without paid ads? Today, Kasim Aslam breaks down how consistency, smart niching, hiring the right people, and delegating everything can scale your business. Welcome to Rise to Lead, the podcast where heart-driven leaders come together to inspire and innovate. They will share actionable tips and insights that help you lead your team more successfully, advance your career or business as a leader, achieve greater impact, and experience deeper fulfillment. I'm your host, Regina Huber, guiding you through deep conversations about leadership that's rooted in service, freedom, and the desire to leave a positive mark on the world. Welcome to Rise to Lead, where we have exceptional guests every single time. Today, we are joined by Kasim Aslam from Arizona. Great to have you on, Kasim.
Great to be on, Regina. Thank you.
And I do hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly now. I'm doing my best. I know.
So I tell everybody it's like awesome with a K, Kasim.
Oh, it's like awesome. Yeah, right. Awesome. I have a friend actually whose name is Asami, and she said exactly the same thing. So that's easy for me to remember. Okay, so Kasim is a serial entrepreneur who has built six, seven, and eight-figure businesses. Very impressive, including two successful exits. He is the co-founder of Driven Mastermind and the creator of Digital Marketers Paid Traffic Certification. Last year, he exited Solutions 8, one of the world's top Google Ads agency, and co-founded Pareto Talent, a company dedicated to helping entrepreneurs reclaim their time by matching them with world-class executive assistants. He was named one of the top 50 digital marketing thought leaders in the US. And he's now preparing to release Hire, a groundbreaking book that distills the systems he used to build his companies. Yes, yes, he is showing it. If you're watching this on YouTube, you will see the book. And if you're listening, then of course the book is called Hire, Hire. I'm very curious to hear more about that too shortly. So, Kasim, what was the pivotal moment that shifted you from aspiring actor to entrepreneurial leader? And first of all, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate you. I don't know that I shifted from one to the other. I kind of had a foot on the boat and a foot on the dock, and life took off, and I had to choose. And so I was trying to do both. I started my business for maybe many reasons, but one of them was because I just needed something I could do from set. And
Mhm.
it turns out there aren't many roles for 9 foot tall Pakistanis. And so the acting didn't pan out the way that I would have hoped. But business took off. And I think I finally decided to just full on quit when I had my son. Um, my boy was born in 2015. And for some reason, like acting and filmmaking and all those things just sort of paled in comparison to building stuff. It just didn't seem important anymore. I don't know why. Uh, so yeah, I threw in the towel and I don't know. It was a lot of fun. I've been in 80 movies. None of them are good. Uh, I've had scenes with some like, C-level celebrities. I was in a scene with Sarah Chalk, Said Bedreya, David Delarocco. I was in the behind the scenes of an Anthony Hopkins movie. I got on Leno once, um, in one of his recorded clips. Like, I had a couple of just near brushes with who knows what, and then I just got tired of it all.
Okay.
So,
Well, Anthony Hopkins, I was in an Anthony Hopkins movie. Can you
were
believe
you?
it?
Which one?
I was an extra though. I was not an actress. It was in Argentina because I lived in Buenos Aires. I used to own a bed and breakfast in Buenos Aires.
Oh, wow.
And my neighbor had a casting company. And that's how I got into a few movies as an extra. And I just did it for the fun of it. It was little pay. It wasn't because of that really, but I enjoyed the experience. And yeah, and one of them was an Anthony Hopkins movie, and I'm just trying to remember what the title even was. I have to, it's gonna come back in a bit.
Yeah, what a small world. That's so funny. And Buenos Aires happens to be one of my favorite places on the planet. So what a beautiful place to have a bed and breakfast.
Yeah, yeah. I used to live in Brazil and Argentina twice, so for a total of about 9 years. Yeah. So you're nine feet tall
Yeah, well, I'm six
on the
four,
back?
but when you're for filmmaking, it's just too tall to function.
Okay, okay.
They have their buy box. And yeah, you make everybody else dwarf on camera. So they make you do this thing in filming. They have something called an apple box, and if somebody's too short, then they make the short person stand on the apple box to make them look taller. Or especially
Oh,
if the short person is a more important person, they make the tall person do something that they call a reverse box, which is you stand with your legs really, 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 really wide because the camera's not capturing your feet. And so you suddenly drop down by, almost a foot or however much. And it's so unbelievably uncomfortable because sometimes you find yourself standing like that for, hours on end. Um,
wow.
and it's a weird industry, it's like everybody that pre-technology would have been in like the carnival or the circus. You know what I mean? Like it's that sort of group of people, like just like transient artistic, kind of seedy, like everybody's trying to use you in a very weird way. Just a strange environment, strange community.
Okay, and now you are an entrepreneur and a very successful one. So now you determine yourself what what your environment looks like. So in that sense, that's definitely better, right?
Oh
But
yeah.
that's an interesting fact. I didn't know that about acting. So thanks for sharing that and allowing us to have a glimpse behind the scenes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Thanks for asking.
Cool. Yeah, so what inspired you to co-found Driven Mastermind and other ventures like Pareto Talent? What was the initial spark for this?
I like building businesses. I built the number one ranked Google Ads agency in the world, and I sold it in October of 2022. And I ended up with more money than I knew what to do with, to be frank. And so I started using that as seed capital for other endeavors. Um, Driven was the first. I had a friend come to me and say he owned a large mastermind that they were shutting down and he wasn't finished. And
Mhm,
so he asked if I wanted to be a partner.
mhm.
So that one was more or less handed to me on a silver platter. And Pareto was a passion project. I've always hired internationally. When I sold Solutions 8, I had 80 employees and only six were in the United States. The rest of them were, I mean, I had 20 some odd people in Canada, 30 in India, all over Latin America, North Africa, Eastern Europe, all of Asia. Um, I have a real passion for helping people in emerging nations find meaningful work. And that's what Pareto Talent does. We focus exclusively on Latin America. We have a big footprint in Argentina and then also Colombia. And then, some folks kind of sneak in on the periphery. We have folks, I think, from like Ecuador, Nicaragua, Peru. So we're growing at a breakneck pace. My hope is that by the end of the year, we've already placed close to 100 EAs or trained close to 100 EAs. And I'd like that number to be 300. And then I'd like 300 to be 1,000. And I'd like 1,000 to be 10,000. And we'll see how we
Wow.
do.
That's amazing. Yeah, I used to travel a lot in Latin America, actually, because first of all, I lived there, but even when I didn't live there, I actually traveled more in Latin America than when I did. That happens sometimes, right? Yeah, so and lately I've traveled more in Africa, but there's not always time for everything. I definitely want to go back. So that just reawakened my travel spirit right now when you mentioned all those names, all those countries, sorry. And that's really exciting to hear. So do most so you're offering those services in multiple languages.
No, we staff, we find people with strong English proficiency. So that's the prerequisite.
Okay.
So all of our Latin American talent has a C1 English certification or higher. And C1, I don't know where the designation comes from. There's a free language test you can take online, and C1 is kind of
Mm.
like functionally proficient for work purposes.
Mhm.
And then we staff them with mostly US based entrepreneurs. I think we have a couple of entrepreneurs I know we have a couple in Canada. I think we have a couple in the UK. But most of our clients are in the US. And my
Um,
favorite thing to do is to take somebody who's hyper competent and doesn't have access to the same amount of opportunity, and then put them with somebody who's, in a I don't know, let's say a more blessed position from an opportunity perspective, but overwhelmed. And that matching, that pairing is extraordinary because the symbiosis, it's the kind of the classic 1 + 1 = 3. They just
right,
really end up helping each other very nicely.
right. Well, thanks for sharing that. Yeah. And um, so, in this context, in the context of those companies that you have created, let's talk team leadership in this context. Okay, why do you think delegation is the single most important skill for an entrepreneur? I read that somewhere.
Um, I think what I'll say is it's important to first define terms. People think they're delegating when they're not.
Hmm.
Uh, what they're really doing is micromanaging and not realizing it. Uh, to delegate, you have to delegate projects, not tasks. I call it the black box of delegation. And so, to delegate properly, you tell somebody what your desired output is. And once the desired output is clear, you let them know what inputs are available. This is the money I'm willing to spend. These are the other resources, other stakeholders, software, whatever, brand guidelines, rules. Input defined, output defined. What happens in between is none of your business. Like, leave it alone. There's no way you're going to influence this process for the better, Mr. or Mrs. Entrepreneur. It's because you've hired this person to be extraordinary, so let them be extraordinary. And I realize I didn't answer your question, but I think that preface was necessary because without delegation, I believe entrepreneurs are diminished, massively diminished in value. You're the least scalable part of your endeavor. You're the least scalable part of your portfolio of businesses or of your business if you only have one. Um, and most entrepreneurs, especially early stage entrepreneurs, are trying to do too much. There's the classic, you're wearing too many hats. My petulant opinion is you shouldn't be wearing any hats. If you're really an entrepreneur, in the truest sense of the word, you shouldn't be on the org chart. Like you're building a business as a standalone mechanism that runs without you. So you shouldn't exist anywhere in that business in order to comply with that definition, which would mean everything has to be delegated or automated or eliminated. And so that's the linchpin skill. That's the thing that people have to learn how to do if they really want to conquer the entrepreneurial landscape.
Right. And delegation requires trust in both
Oh, yes.
directions. It, especially when you want to move away from micromanaging, because that often comes from a lack of trust, right? So if I don't trust my team, then how would I delegate?
Right.
And I wouldn't be able to trust them to execute the tasks, not just execute the task, but even more so, as you said, own the project, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Very well stated.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very powerful. And also what you said about the only say that again, the scale. The only person you cannot scale, or say that again. That
Oh, you're the
I love
least
that.
scalable part of your endeavor.
Yeah.
Um, which the other thing that I think is really interesting is unless you're somebody, oh, I don't know who a good example would be. Sam Altman is probably a good example. Unless you're somebody, or, Naval Ravikant's a great example. Ray Dalio is a great example. Those are people that the organizations they run would benefit if they had more of them. So that's the type of founder that could be scaled. But I think that they're the minority. Generally speaking, it's Elon Musk or Steve Jobs or, the kind of eccentric visionary who you don't need any more of them. You actually don't need any more Elons, right? Like there are enough ideas. There are more, he has more than enough. If you had more Elons, it would just be more disruption, more fires, more mess. He's brilliant, but he's also he checks the box. What you want to scale isn't Elon. What you want to scale is the person that can execute on what it is that Elon wants done. And so more often than not, I don't think the founder should be scaled. I actually think they should be scaled back. Um, the founders are, especially as businesses grow, they're the most disruptive facet of the business. And we've all been there. When I had Solutions 8, I worked with quite literally thousands of organizations. I had $100 million in ad spend under management on an annual basis, spread across hundreds of clients. And the biggest growth inhibitor, if a business had a good product in a viable market, that's the X and the Y axis, right? You're selling something that's quality to somebody who can afford it and sees the value. That's business. Bam. That's the arithmetic that's necessary. If that was true and the business wasn't growing, it was always the founder. Always. The founder was doing something, insisting on something that was getting in the way of the growth of the business. And it's shocking to see how consistent that is. So if I'm coaching founders, and I'm not a good coach, I think you are, um, the thing that I would try to be coaching them towards is getting out of the way, remove yourself, peel back, do less you, more them.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about thought leadership. Why is it so important to be seen as a thought leader, and how can it create a huge shift for entrepreneurs who want to be recognized as thought leaders?
Traffic is the most expensive part of any business by far.
Hmm.
Um, I come from a traffic background. I spent 20 years of my life driving traffic. And traffic, people use different words for traffic, right? It could be traffic or attention or
Yeah,
advertising or whatever. But eyeballs, like traffic is more expensive than if for most businesses, it's more expensive than cost of goods, operating costs, fulfillment costs, um, combined sometimes. And you know that because you look at the most valuable companies in the world. Google's a traffic store, Meta's a traffic store, Amazon's a traffic store. That's all they do is drive traffic. There's logistics on the back end, but the
yeah,
value they bring is traffic. And when you're running ads, what you find is very often, especially in heavily commoditized industries, traffic, the cost of traffic is in excess of what you make net. So if you sell a fancy water bottle, let's say, because I have one on my desk here that I'm looking at, and so that's the best example I have. The cost to sell that bottle, the amount of money you're going to pay Google or pay Meta to advertise and sell it is higher than the amount of money you'll take home to the bottom line, which if you really think about it, that means you're working for them. The fact that Meta makes more money on your product sale than you do on a per unit basis, that's insane. It blows my mind. We're all just kind of slaves to these machines. But why? Because they have the traffic, they capture the attention. And the only way that I see
mhm,
for small, if you're $1 trillion organization, that works to your benefit. If you're not, the only way for a small business, small advertiser, even medium-sized businesses, to be frank, to lift themselves out of that cesspool is to build authority. It's to be a thought leader. And you see the people that do this really well. Alex Hormozy, everybody keeps going on and on and on and on. Alex made $105 million in a day. No, he didn't. He made $105 million over the course of 7 years by giving more value than I've ever seen a thought leader give. I mean, the guy he shot 50 videos a day for 7 years and long form content and courses and books. And he gave and he gave and he gave and he gave and he gave. And he established thought leadership. He established authority. He lifted himself out of the necessity of paying for traffic. And then he made $105 million in a day, quote unquote. So no, I think thought leadership and authority building is the single most important thing that an entrepreneur can do for themselves because you solve for traffic. Once people know, like, and trust you, and you don't have to pay to go to the well that is people's attention, there's a reason that Clooney can sell $1 billion in gin. You know, George Clooney has nothing to do with gin. Never in my life have I seen a movie about gin with George Clooney in it. He doesn't have a gin background. His family doesn't own a
Yeah.
gin. I don't know what gin comes from. You know what I mean? Like that, but and he just slaps his face on something, and because he has attention and he has authority and he has traffic, Ryan Reynolds sells mobile phones and cell phone service. You know, like authority is it's a currency. It's a currency with a depth of social equity that we've n- we've we've never really given the appropriate amount of value to. But it's not new. This isn't an internet phenomenon. The scale of it is. But if you go back to Greco-Roman era times, there was somebody, you know, some town crier, some authority, some author, some philosopher. You know, Plato's sitting there roaming around Areopagus and lecturing people, and everybody's paying attention to him. And he had the traffic. And so he was able to move the needle in whatever way that he wanted to move it. So authority building, even in a micro scale, don't set out to be Alex Hormozy. What you're doing right now, Regina, I think is extraordinarily brilliant. Nobody needs to, you don't have to have 1 trillion followers. You really, you know, there's a really fun thesis floating around online called 1,000 true fans. I don't even think it needs to be 1,000. It could be 10. You know, 10 people in the right niche paying you the right amount of money is a great audience. And I think everybody in business should be working to build that micro authority, that niche authority.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. We all start somewhere.
Right.
It starts and you share value online, and which is what I also and many others do on their YouTube channels, on any other outlets that they prefer to do that on. And over time it builds up. Yeah, absolutely. And how has this leadership positioning influenced your ability to scale businesses and launch new ventures?
It's funny, when we launched Pareto Talent, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I think, I don't know, our first 25 clients came from 2 posts. I posted on my Facebook page and I've posted in my mastermind. And I gave everybody in my mastermind a really special deal. And something in excess of 20 for sure, but I think it was close to 25 of our early stage clients. And we're a high ticket item, we're a premium. So to get 25 clients right out of the gate without having to advertise or cold call or even really, you know, take excessive meetings. I had a bunch of people that know, like, and trust me that wanted what I had. And all of our clients to date, I think we've spent a sum total of like $1,000 in advertising. Like we've spent nothing, which is funny coming from a paid ad guy. It's because I've seen how that lever doesn't work. All of our clients, or all of our staffs, all of our placements have come from referrals. So all of my clients either came from my audience as a pseudo authority or from referrals from my audience. And I'm not like I have 20,000 followers on Facebook. That's not nothing, but it's not, you know, it
Mhm.
I couldn't do pay to play. People aren't going to pay me to post on my page. Um, I've got 20,000 followers on LinkedIn, same thing. But it's enough to launch an entire business. And we're well in the 7 figures now. We've got 25% margins, or if not better. It's a great little business. And I was able to launch that with whatever little authority I've been able to build over time.
Great example. Great example. They doesn't have to be the huge numbers, right? And it's not always how many followers you have. It's really about what you do with what you have at your hands in terms of how you can project that or display is a better word, probably, that thought leadership.
Right. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's exactly right.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have built multiple 7 and 8 figure businesses. What strategic habits were non-negotiable in that process?
We tell people to niche down, which I think is funny. I actually think it's really bad advice. Um, I think niching is the most important thing you can do as a business once you've identified a valuable niche. But I hear this all the time. Young entrepreneurs say things like, "Where should I start?" And then some old grizzled veteran comes out and says, "You know, pick a niche," and there's no niche too small. And that's not true. You can't pick a niche arbitrarily. It's like walking out in your backyard and saying, I'm going to drill for oil here. Like there's no sign that there's oil there, right? So the thing to do is to start broad, knowing it's a bad idea. So with almost every endeavor, I'm doing it right now. I own AEO.co, Answer Engine Optimization. Answer Engine Optimization is about to take over search engine optimization for so many reasons that are obvious, but a lot of people don't realize. And the thing about AEO is I have no idea what it's going to be as a business. I don't know if it's going to be a SaaS product. I don't know if it's going to be a professional service. I don't know if it's going to be a community. I don't know if it's going to be data that I'm selling. I don't know. I don't know. I have 5 full-time employees that do nothing but look at how LLM source their citations. I have more data on this than any other human on the planet, except maybe Monique Bond. And I have no idea how to monetize it. And to me, that's okay because I start broad. And so I call it the hourglass of niching. Start broad with knowing it's a bad idea, knowing it's stupid, knowing it's inefficient, but it gives you the opportunity to kiss frogs. Try different lines of service, try different industries, try different customers. And then you go, wow, that didn't work. That wasn't profitable. I don't like doing that. And then you slowly start to niche down. And then you realize, oh my goodness, this really works and I enjoy it. And there's a bunch of people that are actually willing me to do it. Oh my, what? I've done it. I struck gold. So Solutions 8 is the best example because of the name. Solutions 8 was called Solutions 8 because it had 8 core service offerings because I'm an idiot. And I was like, I'm going to be good at everything. And we offered web design and SEO and PPC and graphic design and video production and content creation and social media marketing. And it was absurd. It was an absolute absurd endeavor. And I thought I could do all of that with this little, I had a dozen employees. And I'm convinced I can be the best at all those things. And I found the hourglass of niching by accident because I have these 8 core service offerings and every couple of months I'd come to work and I'd be like, I'm never doing video production again. It's expensive. The overhead is insane. It's hard to insure. You have to have somebody on site. I'm cutting that service off. And then something would happen on social and I'd be like, I'm cutting that service off. And I slowly started cutting services off out of desperation. And
Mhm.
the thing that happened that it took me too long to figure out was I started to get more profitable. I got more profitable. I got more efficient. I got better at the things that we kept. And so we started as a full funnel marketing agency, and then we started niching down to just traffic, and then just paid traffic, and then just paid traffic within Google, and then just paid traffic within Google for e-commerce businesses. And that's a pretty tight niche. And that teeny, 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 teeny niche that I carved out was worth an 8-figure exit. I sold for a low 8-figure sum of money, which 8 figures, I'm the poorest rich person there is, right? Like 8 figures it's not private jet money, it's not yet money, but I never have to work again. And now I have the money that I need to go launch every other business that I need to launch. And so start broad knowing it's stupid, niche down. And the reason it's an hourglass, by the way, I never really got to do this with Solutions 8 because we sold. But what's cool about the hourglass of niching is once you've niched down, once you've figured out where the apex of profitability is, it puts you in the position to then expand back out. So if I wanted to, once I figured out Google ads for e-commerce businesses, if I wanted to start offering website design, I could do that. At the top of the hourglass, it was stupid because I was offering it to everybody and I didn't know how to be good at it. At the bottom of the hourglass, I'm only offering it to e-commerce businesses and I'm only offering it from a Google Ads paradigm because I know what a website needs to do to be successful in Google Ads. So now I can expand back out. I can offer web, I can offer social, I can offer SEO, I can offer content. I can offer all these things, but from my niched paradigm. And now all those things become functional and profitable. That's the hourglass of niching. And you see that it's not, I haven't invented this. I think it's a natural model. I stumbled upon it naturally. But look at what Bezos did with books. Everybody says, "Oh, Amazon started as a bookstore." No, it didn't. No, it didn't. Jeff knew I need to test my logistics theory, right? So he cracked the code. He found the apex of profitability with books. And then I remember the first day I was on Amazon thinking it was only a bookstore. And all of a sudden, I forget what it was. It was like a blender or a toaster or something. And I was like, what the hell is going on that this guy thinks he can sell, everything in the kitchen sink? And I was very critical of it. I thought it was so stupid and so short-sighted. It shows how dumb I am. But once you've found your apex of profitability, then you can branch back out into literally anything and everything.
That was actually going to be my next question because again, but you also already answered it. So yeah, so can you then branch out again? But you already answered it. So yeah, excellent. So let's talk about talking about books. Perfect segue. Let's talk about your book, Higher. So how does it reflect your approach to what we have been talking about and to scaling sustainably, delegation, and any other related topics.
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier that I believe delegation is the most important skill an entrepreneur
Mhm.
can learn. The problem with that is effective delegation presupposes you have somebody effective to delegate to, right? Like a lot of
Exactly.
delegation failures come not from the fact that you're not delegating well, it's because you're delegating to an idiot or to somebody who's at least not in the right role, right? Classic Jim Collins, right person, right seat, right bus. And so I've spent the only thing I might be world class at is talent acquisition. I've spent my entire professional career, I'm 40, so I've spent 20 years really cracking the code on finding what I call Pareto talent. It's what we named our business after. The Pareto distribution is named after an Italian mathematician who identified the uh, the ever-present input-output disparity in all organic ecosystems. And people call it the 80-20 rule. So you've known it as the 80-20 rule, and effectively it means that like 20% of prisoners commit 80% of the crimes, and 20% of your customers are responsible for 80% of the revenue, and 20% of citizens are responsible for 80% of the vote. Like weird, and it happens in every, it's not always 80-20, but in every organic ecosystem, there's a massive disparity between input-output.
Yes.
And when you realize that with the labor pool that you have access to, 20% of the employees do 80% of the work. Well, you can index towards that 20%. And then you end up with like massively potent, unbelievably powerful, skilled humans working for you. When I sold Solutions 8, I had 40% margins in an industry that aims at 15% as a high watermark, according to HubSpot statistics, and HubSpot has more data on that than anybody. I was able to 3x almost the high watermark margins of my industry because I got Pareto talent. But it requires an entire reframe, an entire shift in your thinking. And that's what the book is about. The book is about here's the new paradigm. This is the way to think. And then it's a framework. It's a step-by-step process. Here's how you go out and you find these people. And once you've built it for, you have to build it for each individual role. And it's not easy, by the way. This is not like a walk in the park. It's tedious. But once you've built it, you have it forever. And it just yields. It's an equity driver. And I'm really proud of it. It's my life's work. So I'm pretty excited about going to market with it. Your audience can have it absolutely free. There's no
Wow.
cost, there's no ascension. They can go to thehirebook.com. They get the book, they get the cheat sheet, they get the workbook, they get all the resources, all the templates. I want my name to be synonymous with the word hire.
Definitely get that book, people. I will get it. That's for sure. And yeah, it's brilliant. Like it's, because it's much harder once you have your people, it's much harder to make it all work. And when you have the chance, the possibility to make a new hire and to really choose that person for your team consciously, that is worth so, so much.
So much. Yeah, I mean, there's been nothing more impactful in my business than finding people that are better, smarter, faster than me, and then just getting out of their way. I'm so much more
Yeah,
successful than I deserve to be because none of my success is really it's not a result of my efforts. It's a result of efforts of people that I have found. And gosh, what a blessed place to be.
beautiful. Yes, and this is also relevant for anyone working in corporate, by the way. It's not just for business owners, right?
Right.
I hired a lot of people when I was still at Boston Consulting Group in several different countries, and hiring the right person was also important to me there, right? I had a big team. It was important for every single other team member to pick the right person, to pick the best candidate, because in a team, when you pick the wrong candidate, everybody around that person suffers in
Oh
the end,
yeah. One
right?
bad apple, man. It's so true. It's it's really sensitive. Team building is sensitive, culture is sensitive. Yeah, really well
Yes,
said.
yes. And sometimes it's time to say goodbye to someone too. I think
Right.
that's also important to recognize. Sometimes it's the moment has come and it's probably you're not doing them a favor by keeping them.
No, I
That's
hire
also
slow,
really
fire
important.
quickly. And I hate to say this, it's not meant to be a brag, but I'm really good at
Mhm.
letting people go at this point in my life because it like you said, it's obvious, it's it's the right thing for both of you. And when you
Yeah.
realize that, it kind of takes a lot of the pressure and the tension off. It's like, hey, this isn't working for either of us. I think you're an amazing human in so many other ways, and I bet you're going to be really successful in a different context. I love you, I mean it, and this is your last day here.
Right. And the other way around too, by the way, when somebody really is ready to leave
Oh yeah,
because they have a good reason to leave, then don't hold them back either, because it's not gonna hold on for very, very long. Unless something, very substantial changes and that is great for both of you. But unless that's the case, sometimes it's also time for people to leave on their own and give them your blessing.
absolutely. I have an entire section in my book. One of the questions I get all the time is, how do you retain top talent? And the
Yeah.
answer is you don't. Top talent
Oh,
does not
yeah.
want to be retained. They want to see growth opportunities, and they're going to outgrow you. And you can
Mhm.
either try to hang on to them desperately, which means you're incentivizing a midnight move out. And you're actually, in my mind, I think that's a pernicious evil. Like, this isn't indentured servitude. Those people don't owe you anything. It's an
Mhm.
employment opportunity, right? So you pay them, they work.
Right.
That's the agreement. And for employers that feel like, oh, but I've invested so much in their growth. Yeah, and they've invested in yours. I've had two really, really good case studies. Colin Schmelbeck, who's now famous in the Google Ads world. If you go to Twitter, he's probably the biggest name in Twitter in the world of Google Ads. He was an employee of mine. And when I hired him, I interviewed him. I knew he wanted to start his own agency. It was obvious. And so I said, all right, dude, you got to give me 2 years and you got to find and train your own replacement. And he did exactly that. So I have the massive benefit of this brilliant mind for 2 years. And then I helped him. I started to refer clients to him as he phased out. Here's the thing that happened that blew my mind that I never really thought was going to come. He started to refer clients back to me because he wanted to stay small. He just wanted a little lifestyle business. He didn't want a bunch of employees or huge infrastructure. So he would cherry pick all the best clients, and then he'd send anybody that with a little difficulty or a little infrastructure problem my way, and I ended up with this amazing referral source. I had another young man, Danish Ashrafi, brilliant freelancer out of Pakistan. He was like a VA who just outgrew me, and he started to get really good and he got a lot of clients. And so I was finally like, Danish, you're too big for your britches. Like you're not, he started to kind of slack off on me, to be honest with you, because he was trying to work for me and grow his own little business. So I just started referring clients to him. One day I get an email from him saying, I have a client that's too big for me. Do you want him? It's Jay Abraham. I get an introduction to the CMO of Jay Abraham's organization through a Pakistani freelancer that you know what I mean? Like, it's just this crazy,
Yeah.
fun, full circle moment where you're like, wow. So I think the best thing you can do as an employer is be an incubator for people, be a stepping stone. Be able to look and be like, gosh, I really helped get them there. Because when other people see that you do that, you attract top talent. Then they start flocking to you.
Yeah. As a little side, I've made very good experiences with Pakistani freelancers, by the
Oh
way.
gosh, I want to talk about
I,
like the best problem solvers in the world. They can't be on time for anything, which
uh-huh.
if you can get over that, there's not a lot of problems they can't solve.
That I haven't experienced, but yeah, I must say this. Yeah, absolutely. And usually the communication has been good too, because every culture has a different communication style, and I'm
Yeah.
used to quite a few because I've lived in places and traveled a lot. But still, there's always something new that is there to learn for us. So yeah, absolutely. So. What are the first one or two moves an entrepreneur should make if they want to build authority and scalable systems, in your opinion?
To build authority, you have to create content.
Hmm.
Um,
We
you
talked
have to
about that.
create content,
Hmm.
and you have to create content. Do it in a way that you like and makes you comfortable.
Hmm.
Everybody, the first question, everybody's like, oh, well, what's the best social network for me to
Yeah.
invest in? Where should I start? And I'm like, go where you want to go. And maybe that's not the most strategic move, but what it will do is ensure that you continue to create content. If you really love to write, then do Medium or do Substack or do a LinkedIn articles. If you really love voice, do a podcast. If you really love videos, do YouTube. If you really love short form and editing, do Instagram or TikTok. If you really, you know what I mean? Blog, email, I don't care. Create content somewhere and do the thing that won't feel like friction. Because the thing about content creation that is an absolute ubiquitous axiom that nobody can fight or argue with is it relies on consistency. All the thought leaders that we see in our world today aren't the best or the smartest. They're the most consistent. And I promise you, the best and the smartest quit a long time ago, because consistency and intelligence actually generally, in my experience, have an inverse ratio for whatever reason, right? There's a lot of really brilliant cab drivers out there. So when you find somebody like Alex Hormozy who is brilliant and consistent, it just blows all of our minds. Go to the place where you know you'll be able to be consistent. If you love to tweet, if you're on Twitter all the time, I've got a friend like this. He's glued to Twitter, or now it's X now, right? And he can't get himself out of the damn platform. That's where he should be creating content. He doesn't do it, but he should because he's already in the thing and he already knows it and he likes it and he's absorbed in that culture. Every social network has its own culture, its own ethos, its own personality. The same human being engaging on Instagram is different once they move into TikTok or Reddit, or you know what I mean? Like you change
Yes,
the
absolutely.
context changes the interaction. And so go where you I'm a 40-year-old male. I like Facebook. I don't know why. I know Facebook's dying, they say demographically. It actually started to take this really weird kind of revitalization. I post these I just have these like weird, I wrote a thread every single day for a year. I published it. I have a book called The Book of Threads. Don't buy it or read it. It's a waste of time. But it was just so cathartic for me and helpful and it, Jordan Peterson says if you want to learn to think, learn to write. So I just started writing and the engagement I got was insane. It was insane. It was the best authority building I've ever done in my entire life. And it was what I wanted to do. I wasn't sitting there trying to pander to anybody else. So go find a network that you love, a place that makes you comfortable, and then create content. And it's okay to be an authority doesn't mean you have to be the triple PhD smartest person in that space. It means you need to be one step ahead of whoever you're talking to. So you can actually be you could be an amateur baker. You can be like, I'm learning how to make sourdough. And I don't know anything there is to know about sourdough, but I'm going to learn and I'm going to learn in front of you. And now whoever's watching this video is like, oh, I don't know anything either. You're one step ahead of me because you at least researched where to start. And so now you have authority in that microcosm, in that echo chamber. So get rid of the imposter syndrome. You don't need to be the smartest person in the whole wide world, but don't posture as though you are either. When I had my Google Ads agency, I'd say I'd made so many mistakes, Regina, publicly on YouTube lives. And I'd say, oh, I think this is the thing to do. And then somebody smarter in the comments would be like, no, 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 dude, you can't do that for this reason. You have to do this. And then I would be like, wow, thank you so much. This is awesome. And everybody loved me for it because they're like, whether or not it comes from me, I built an ecosystem that allowed for the truth. And just a little dose of humility and being wrong publicly. Is it a little embarrassing? Yeah, but does it show authenticity in a way that builds trust beyond what other people could build? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I love a couple of things that I want to go back to. First of all, yes, be a human. We are all humans, and that's relatable, right? Not everything needs to come across as super polished or perfect. Just like before I was adjusting my light, if you're listening on audio, you wouldn't have seen it, but I was trying to adjust my light because I got a new ring light and it's amazing, but it's still putting that glare into my glasses, which is one of the things that I exactly wanted to avoid with this new light. And I sat down and I got the natural light about right. And now I had this glare, right? But not to interrupt this conversation. Again, I didn't want to get up and say, hey, you know what? I want to adjust the light again. Well, it's no biggie. It would be nicer if it were perfect right now, the lighting, but next time I'm going to get it right. Now, but that also doesn't mean that I cannot publish this podcast on YouTube, right? So I'm just going to make it a little bit real here for our audience with one of my examples. And the other thing that I really loved is that you said you don't have to be on every single platform because there are coaches who tell you have to be on all of them. And
Oh,
I was working with somebody who actually said, "Well, you have to do what I do on Instagram." And I literally tried because you know, I wanted to try it out. I did create an Instagram account again, my second one. And now I just keep posting what I post on the other channels, which is not exactly right for that platform always, just because I already have it, but I feel much more comfortable. Like you said, I have a LinkedIn newsletter. I publish regularly every single week. I have this podcast, which I love doing because I meet excellent wisdom here and brilliant people all the time, like you. And I have also the opportunity through this podcast to bring your knowledge and your wisdom, Kasim, to my audience, right? And these are great tools for me. I have a YouTube channel. Sometimes I am not everywhere at the same time, but I picked my places, and I couldn't agree with that more. It's just because that creates that consistency because you really got to do it. And you
Yeah.
will not probably do it on every single platform unless you do. Some people do, but not
Well, I think that's
everybody wants to do
overwhelming.
that, right?
And the people that do, I generally, my experience has been that it's not them doing it, it's their team now, which there's a
Absolutely.
layer of authenticity that you lose, not that that's bad. My team posts for me on LinkedIn and
Hmm.
I think Instagram. If you see me on Facebook, it's definitely me. If you see me on other social networks, it's because somebody else is posting for me. But you can also kind of tell. Like it's my words. They only ever post what I say, but it's just, the context changes a little bit different and any interaction or comments are a little bit different. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So thanks for sharing that. So we have been talking for a long time, but let me pick one of the many questions I have for you still um, to conclude this conversation. So, can you share a quick success story from your clients that illustrates any of these strategies that we have discussed here in action, or any of the principles?
Oh, wow. I want to pick a favorite. Honestly, I think my favorite success story, it's not a client, it's an employee. Is that okay?
Totally okay. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So, I hired a young man 6 years ago. He's in his early 20s. He's Ukrainian by nationality, but he was going to school in Poland. And I found him on freelancer.com. And I remember his message to me was so funny. It had all this character and all this wit, but he basically said, I'll do anything you need for $1,000 a month. He's like, I need $1,000 USD to cover all my expenses and pay for school. And I think he wasn't married yet, but he wanted to get married. And I remember just like, I loved the transparency of that. He's like, no boundaries, no limitations. He's like, send me everything you got and I'll do it all for $1,000. And so I hired him. His name was Ivan. And I start lobbing all my problems at him. He started as kind of just this VA sort of digital assassin, just did whatever, kind of a handyman, did whatever I needed him to do. And he was so good and he was so fast and he was so creative and he was so thoughtful that I started like sending him real problems, real work. Like instead of just VA work, I'd be like, man, this is actually like something really significant. And there was just nothing the kid couldn't do. And unlike most employees, not to slander the employment market, but a lot of employees, when they hit a wall, they stop. And that's kind of the mentality that makes an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs are people who can run through walls. Most employees can't, or at least choose not to. Maybe they're not incentivized properly. Yvonne, if he hit a wall, he'd find a way under, find a way over, find a way around, find a way through, find a way to disintegrate the wall, to peer past the wall. He was just this amazing, amazing resource. He starts climbing the ladder at my organization. I'm building this big shop at the time. This is Solutions 8. He becomes our tech lead. He becomes the company CTO. He manages my entire exit. So my exit was it was 8 months with a company backed by SoftBank. SoftBank had given them $100 million. They had a $1.5 billion valuation because they got a bunch of money from other people too. Their due diligence team were all retired Goldman Sachs guys who were just the smartest and most evil humans in the world. And it's like just an 8 month, very in depth, very intense process. And it's Goldman Sachs panel versus me and my Ukrainian VA or turned CTO. And he did all of it. He manages my whole exit. And during after a little bit after the exit, I got this WhatsApp video message from him when Russia attacked Ukraine. and it's rockets flying overhead. And he and his pregnant wife had 30 minutes to get out of their apartment. And he sent me a video looking back at his apartment building right as a rocket hit it. And then he spends 30 days fleeing from northeastern Ukraine to southwestern Ukraine. And I file for an H-1B visa. I called my attorney and I was like, I need an H-1B. And my attorney goes, you and the whole world, everybody wanted to get all their friends and family and cohort out of Ukraine. And she goes, you have a better chance of winning the lottery, literally, than getting this H-1B through. And I was like, do it. I don't give, you know what I mean? Like, do it anyway. Let's roll the dice. We roll the dice, and by the grace of whatever God exists, we get it. And he lives here now. He lives in Wisconsin with his wife and his son, Lev, who's born in the States. And he's my business partner at Pareto Talent. He owns 50% of that company. He and I own a handful of other companies together as well, to varying degrees. We own Architects together. We own Tech Stack together. We own AEO.co together. And he's just the best example of what happens when you find extraordinary talent. Like, he's changed my life. You know, he's made me so much money. He's made me so much more efficient. I don't worry about anything. I own this half of this beautiful company that makes such an impact and is so profitable. And Regina, I do nothing. I do this. I talk to people, I source, attention, I refer clients, but I don't know where the keys are. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how the business is run, who's doing what's happening today, where the meeting is. I have no idea. I just show up and I talk because I've got this guy, who at this point is like a brother to me, who's just like, he's a miracle. He's a miracle. And not to diminish his value, but what I'd say to your listeners is, he's not the only one. There's so many people around the world. If you're born in the Western world, you have, and this will get real preachy, but I don't care. If you're born in the Western world, which I think is the politically correct term, we have access to so much opportunity. It's just there. I'm a welfare baby. I was raised by a blind single mother on Social Security disability in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I was born with literal zero. I'm a decamillionaire now. And that's not because of me. Right? That's because I'm in this environment where somebody who wants to work hard can do that. I can go from 0 to 10 million, and I still have a life and I haven't had to kill myself. Most people are not in an environment where that's possible. But they're still there, and they're still brilliant, and they're still hardworking, and they're still capable. And there are Yvonnes out there for everybody. And if you go and you find him or her, like, good God, they'll change your life, and then you can change theirs.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing this very inspiring story. So people search for talent. It's there, right?
Yeah.
Whatever you need is out there. There is somebody for the position you have, the role you have, or need to open. So last question. Where can listeners learn more about you or connect with you?
They can go to kasim.me, Kasim.me. My book is free. They can download it there. All my socials, my portfolio of companies. I'd love to be friends. Thanks for exposing me to your audience.
Thank you so much for being here, for sharing all this precious wisdom with us, or your knowledge and everything you have learned through your very unique experience, your path so far in life. And I know there's a lot more to come. A lot more to come from your current companies, maybe future ones. To all our listeners, please do share this episode with anyone who may benefit, your friends, your business friends, your network. We want as many people as possible to benefit and have access to this information and to the book. Tune in again next time for yet another amazing guest. And with that said, goodbye for now. If something in your leadership feels off, or you're ready to lead with more ease and authenticity, let's talk. In a free 60-minute Lead and Thrive session, we'll cut through the noise, get honest about what's really going on, and map out your next bold move. No cookie cutter, no surface level, just real clarity and the freedom to lead as you. Spots are limited. Go to transformyourperformance.com/Lead Thrive session to grab yours. Lead like you mean it.